Marcus Thorne rode into Riverside on a Thursday morning, his Harley bearing the weight of 16 years of silence and a promise he'd never kept. The bike wasn't his. It belonged to a dead man, a brother-in-arms who'd asked one thing before the cancer took him: find the mechanic's kid in Riverside and teach him what it means to earn something real. Marcus found 17-year-old Danny Chen in his father's garage, brilliant with engines, but broken by grief. His father had died 6 months earlier, and the shop was drowning. When Marcus rolled that motorcycle through the bay doors, Danny saw only a stranger. But Marcus saw something else: potential, a second chance. The old biker made Danny an offer that would echo through their small town: fix the brakes on this machine, understand every system, and you can ride it home. What began as mechanical instruction became a reckoning with loss, loyalty, and the kind of family that chooses you. As Danny learns to rebuild, he uncovers the truth about the motorcycle's history, about Marcus's past, and about a promise that could change everything if they both survive what's coming. This is a story about broken men fixing engines and broken boys learning to live again. The garage smelled like rust and regret. Danny Chen stood beneath the lift, socket wrench heavy in his palm, staring at the undercarriage of Mrs. Patterson's sedan. The brake lines were shot, corroded, weeping fluid onto her driveway for God knows how long. He'd texted her 3 times about repairs. She'd ignored all of them. His father would have handled this differently, would have walked over to her house, coffee in hand, and convinced her with that easy smile that Danny could never quite copy. But his father was dead, and the shop was Danny's now, all 17 years of him, inheriting a business that bled money, like Mrs. Patterson's brakes bled hydraulic fluid. The rumble came before anything else. It started as a low vibration, so deep it traveled through the concrete floor and into Danny's chest. He looked up as the garage bay doors framed a silhouette, a man on a motorcycle backlit by the brutal October sun. The engine cut to silence. The man climbed off with the deliberate grace of someone who'd been doing this for decades. He was massive, leather jacket creased like old maps, grey threading through his beard, scars visible even from 20 feet away. The kind of man who'd lived hard and survived harder. His eyes were pale blue, the color of winter. "Danny Chen!" His voice sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. "Who's asking?" Danny set down his wrench carefully, every instinct screaming stranger danger. The man stepped deeper into the garage, and Danny caught the emblem on his jacket, a patch that read Iron Promise MC, stitched in silver and black. Motorcycle Club, of course. "My name's Marcus Thorne." He stopped at the motorcycle, running one weathered hand along its frame. "Your father was Tommy Chen." It wasn't a question. Danny's stomach tightened. He was. Past tense, always past tense now. Met him in Kuwait, 2007. He worked on Humvee engines. Best mechanic I ever knew. Marcus turned to face Danny fully. Better than good. He had hands that understood machines. Said his boy had the same gift. If you're following from the beginning, hit that notification bell. This story goes deep. Danny didn't know what to say. His father had served, sure, but he'd never talked about it. Not to Danny, not to anyone after he came home. He's gone. Danny heard his own voice crack slightly. Hated it. 6 months ago. Heart attack. He was only 52. Marcus nodded slowly, like he'd already known. Maybe he had. Maybe this wasn't random. "He asked me something years back," Marcus continued. "Gave me instructions. Said if anything ever happened to him, I should find his boy and teach him what it means to be responsible for something that matters." He glanced at the motorcycle. This belonged to a man named Jesse Garrett, sergeant. Best rider I ever knew. He died 2 years ago. Cancer. Before he went, he asked me to find someone worthy. Someone who could learn to respect a machine instead of just using it. Danny watched the old biker's face, trying to read the story underneath. "I don't understand why you're telling me this." "Because your father made me promise," Marcus said, "and I'm here to keep it." He gestured to the motorcycle. "That bike's been sitting in storage, needs work. The brakes are shot. The carburetor's clogged, the timing's off. If you can fix it, really fix it, not just throw parts at it, then you can ride it home." "I'm not interested in—" "It's not an offer," Marcus interrupted. His voice held no anger, just fact. "It's a condition. Your father believed in earning things, in understanding systems, in knowing why something works before you trust it with your life." He pulled a key from his jacket pocket and set it on the workbench. "Start tomorrow, 7 a.m., bring coffee." He turned and walked toward the motorcycle bay, then paused. When he looked back, his expression had shifted. Something older, something carrying weight. "Your father would want you to know something," Marcus said quietly. He wasn't just a mechanic. He was the kind of man who fixed things because it mattered, because people depended on him. "You've got that same gene, kid. Problem is, you're wasting it on cars for people who don't appreciate you." He climbed onto his Harley. "Tomorrow, 7 a.m. The engine roared to life, and Marcus Thorne rode out of the garage, leaving Danny standing in the dust and the fading light, holding a key that didn't belong to him, and wondering how a dead man could still give orders. Outside, the October wind picked up, carrying the smell of gasoline and something else. Possibility, maybe. Or obligation. Danny couldn't decide which scared him more. Danny didn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling of the apartment above the garage, the key sitting on his nightstand like an accusation. At 6:47 a.m., he gave up pretending and went downstairs, already knowing he'd show up, already knowing he wouldn't be able to help himself. Marcus was already there, leaning against the workbench with 2 cups of coffee, one in each hand. He was dressed the same as yesterday, like leather was skin and motion was breath. "You came," Marcus said, not a question. "You didn't give me much choice." Danny accepted the coffee. It was still hot, perfectly black. "How'd you know I take it black?" "Your father did." Marcus gestured toward the motorcycle, parked now in the center of the bay, its chrome catching the early light. "Let's start simple. Tell me what you see." Danny walked around the bike, running his eyes over every detail. It was a Harley, a classic, maybe 15 years old, well-maintained, but visibly tired. The paint was fading on the tank, the leather on the seat was cracked, and the tires looked questionable. "It needs everything," Danny said finally. "Wrong answer." Marcus stepped beside him. "Look closer. Don't see what's broken. See what's there. What's fighting to stay alive." Danny took another breath and looked again. The engine was clean, recently serviced. The frame had been welded expertly. Someone had crashed this bike and brought it back from the dead. The chrome was oxidized, but underneath was solid steel. This wasn't a machine that had given up. "Someone loved this bike," Danny said slowly, "even when it was dying." "Jesse Garrett," Marcus confirmed. "He'd been riding since he was 14, took this bike to Iraq twice, brought it home twice. The cancer took him, but not before he made sure someone would keep this machine alive." Marcus pointed to the front wheel. "The brakes are where we start, not because they're the most important, they're the most personal. Brakes are about control, about stopping, about knowing that when you squeeze, something responds. You understand?" "Yeah," Danny said, "I understand." "Good." Marcus handed him a tablet loaded with schematics and maintenance logs. "Your father kept these, Jesse's maintenance logs. Every service, every problem, every fix. Read them first, understand the history, then we tear down the brake system and rebuild it together." For the next 6 hours, Danny immersed himself in the machine's history. The logs were meticulous, Jesse's handwriting precise and methodical, documenting everything from oil changes to electrical issues. There were notes in the margins, small observations. Bike runs smooth after tire rotation, improved handling after fork oil service. Remember why you ride. That last one appeared 3 times in the logs, always when Jesse had done major work. By noon, Danny and Marcus had pulled the front brake assembly apart. Hydraulic lines were corroded, the pads were metal to metal, the rotor was warped. It was textbook neglect. This would have failed, Danny said. If someone had ridden this bike hard, the brakes would have given out. Eventually, Marcus agreed. That's why we fix it. That's why we do this right. He handed Danny a new brake line. Bleeding brake systems is an art. Too much air in the lines, and you've got nothing but false stops. You understand the principle? Hydraulic pressure needs to be consistent, Danny said. Any air pocket compromises the system. Exactly. Life's the same way, Marcus said. And there was something in his tone that suggested he wasn't just talking about motorcycles. One broken link, one lie, one person who doesn't show up. It compromises everything. They worked through the afternoon, Danny learning to bleed the brakes with methodical precision. Every squeeze of the brake lever had to be controlled. Every bubble of air had to be purged. Every connection had to be secure. By 6 p.m., when they were done, Danny could feel the difference in the brake lever. Firm, responsive, alive. Now you've got a connection to that machine, Marcus said. You understand one system completely. Tomorrow, we move on to the carburetor. He packed his tools. You did good today, kid. Your father would be proud. Danny wanted to ask how he could know that. Wanted to ask what Marcus wasn't saying about the real reason he was here, about what his father had asked for beyond just teaching mechanical skills. But Marcus was already walking toward his bike, and something about the set of his shoulders said the conversation was over. That night, Danny lay in bed and dreamed about hydraulic pressure, about braking systems and rebuilding them, about the feeling of that brake lever responding under his palm, solid, trustworthy, alive. By the 3rd day, Danny had stopped questioning why Marcus was here. The old biker arrived at 6:55 a.m. every morning with coffee, worked until sunset, and left without unnecessary words. They moved through the motorcycle system by system, brakes, carburetor, ignition, suspension. Each day was the same in structure but different in complexity. Each day, Danny learned not just how to fix things, but why things mattered. The carburetor took 2 days. It was clogged with varnish. Years of old fuel had crystallized inside, choking the engine's ability to breathe. Danny soaked it in parts cleaner and carefully disassembled every passage, every jet, every float valve. Marcus watched but didn't interfere, only occasionally offering guidance. "What's the carburetor's job?" Marcus asked on the 2nd day, while Danny cleaned a tiny jet with a brass wire. "Mix fuel and air," Danny said. "Get the ratio right so the engine burns efficiently. And if the mixture's wrong, engine runs lean or rich. Either way, it dies or it damages itself." Marcus nodded. "Everything in life is a mixture, kid. You get the ratios wrong and the whole thing fails. Too much pride, not enough humility, engine dies. Too much fear, not enough courage, same result." He pointed at the carburetor. "This machine will tell you the truth. It doesn't lie. Doesn't pretend to work when it doesn't. When you're done fixing it, that engine will turn over and run because you understood what it needed." On the afternoon of day 5, they reassembled everything. Danny's hands had calluses now from tools. His fingernails were permanently stained with grease, and something in his chest had shifted. The work had a rhythm, a purpose. It wasn't just mechanics anymore. It was meditation. "Keys are in the ignition," Marcus said, handing them over. "You've rebuilt the critical systems. Now we fire her up." Danny sat on the motorcycle, really sat on it for the first time, feeling the weight of it beneath him, imagining Jesse Garrett riding this same machine through desert heat and mountain roads. He turned the key. The engine turned over, caught, sputtered. Then it died. Danny looked at Marcus. "Check your work," Marcus said calmly. "You know where to look." It took an hour, but Danny found it, a fuel line that wasn't seated properly, disrupting the flow. He fixed it, tried again. This time the engine roared to life, settling into a smooth idle that filled the garage with the sound of resurrection. If you're still here at the end of Chapter 3, we're getting to the heart of this story now. Comment your best guess about what Marcus is really after. Danny revved the engine gently, feeling it respond, and something broke open in his chest. His father had understood this feeling, had felt an engine wake up under his hands and known he'd done something that mattered. The motorcycle ran. Marcus stepped beside him and shut off the engine. In the sudden silence, he looked older, like the weight he'd been carrying had gotten heavier. "Tomorrow we take it on the road," Marcus said. "Short distance, just to make sure everything holds." He paused. "But before that, there's something you need to know about why I'm really here." Danny waited. "Your father was more than a mechanic," Marcus continued. "He was my friend. When we were in Kuwait, I made a mistake, a tactical error that got 2 guys hurt. Could have been worse. Your father didn't report it, covered for me. Said we all make mistakes, that what matters is who you are after." Marcus's voice had gone quiet, barely audible over the cooling engine. "I owed him a debt. He asked me not to repay it to him, but to his son, to teach you that loyalty means something. That promises matter, that there's still honor in this world if you're willing to look for it. That's why you're here." Danny felt something settle inside him. Not anger, but clarity. "That's why I'm here," Marcus confirmed. "But also because I think you needed this, and because your father was right. You've got the gift. You understand machines like most people understand breathing. Question is, what are you going to do with that gift?" Danny didn't answer immediately. He looked at the motorcycle, at the garage around him, at his hands covered in grease and possibility. "I'm going to keep the shop open," he said finally, "but different, better. I'm going to fix things right the way my father would have, the way you taught me." Marcus smiled, a rare expression that transformed his weathered face into something almost gentle. "Then tomorrow," he said, "we ride." The motorcycle felt different on the open road. Danny had ridden dirt bikes as a kid, but this was something else entirely. A machine that weighed 650 pounds and demanded respect. The road was straight and empty, Route 9 heading north out of Riverside, and Marcus led on his own Harley, setting a moderate pace that let Danny feel the bike's balance, its weight distribution, the subtle feedback of the road through the handlebars. They rode for 30 minutes, and Danny felt every second of it. The wind pushing against his chest, the vibration of the engine traveling through his bones, the sense of control and danger wrapped together in a single sensation. When they pulled into a diner parking lot overlooking the valley, Danny's hands were trembling slightly. Marcus killed his engine and waited for Danny to do the same. "How does it feel?" Marcus asked. "Like flying and falling at the same time," Danny said. "That's right." Marcus climbed off his bike, his joints cracking audibly. "That's the feeling that means you're alive. Your father used to say that. Said riding was the closest thing to understanding what it means to be present in every second." They went into the diner, a classic place with red vinyl booths and a waitress who called Marcus by name, which shouldn't have surprised Danny but somehow did. "Coffee, Marcus?" she asked, and there was recognition in her voice, the kind that comes from years of repetition. "Please, Linda, and whatever the kid wants." Marcus slid into a booth by the window, overlooking the valley they'd just ridden up from. Danny ordered a burger he didn't particularly want, and Linda brought coffee without asking for him. "She knows you," Danny said. "This was one of Jesse's favorite spots," Marcus replied. "Linda's been taking care of folks like us since 1998. She understands that some people need a place to think." He wrapped his hands around the coffee cup. "There's something else I need to tell you. and this is where I tell it." Danny felt his stomach shift. "Your father wasn't just in Kuwait," Marcus continued. "He was part of something bigger. We were trying to prevent an arms deal, intelligence work, Black Ops type of thing. Your father and I were part of a team. We got the intel, but we also got discovered. 3 of us got out, 1 didn't." Marcus stared into his coffee like the answer was written in the dark liquid. His name was Michael Torres, 23 years old, from El Paso. Had a wife and a daughter he'd never met. She was born while he was deployed. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I made the call to leave him behind, said we couldn't all get to the extraction point, that it was better to lose one than all 4. Your father disagreed, but we didn't have time to argue. We ran." "Did he die?" Danny asked quietly. "Officially? No record. Unofficially. We got intelligence that he was detained, but nothing concrete ever came out." Marcus looked up from his coffee. "What I'm telling you is that your father carried that weight, never forgave me for making that choice, even though he never said it. And about 2 months before he died, he told me something. Linda appeared with the burger, set it down, and retreated without comment. These were the kinds of conversations that happened in diners, the kind where waitresses knew not to interrupt. He said if Torres was still alive somewhere, I had a debt to pay," Marcus continued. "And if I couldn't find Torres, I should at least find Torres's daughter, a kid about your age," he thought, living somewhere she shouldn't be living, hurting the way kids hurt when they've got no family. He paused. 3 months ago I found her. She's in Riverside. And my job, the real job, is to make sure she's okay, to keep my promise to your father and Torres both." Danny's burger had gotten cold. He wasn't sure he wanted to eat any more. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because you're going to help me," Marcus said simply. "Not with violence or anything like that, but because you've got something Torres's daughter needs. You understand loyalty now. You understand that when someone promises you something, you do what it takes to deliver. That's what your father had, and that's what I've been teaching you." Marcus leaned back in the booth. "Once you can ride that bike solo, once you know it will do what you ask of it, then we're going to find Sarah Torres and give her a family, even if we have to build it from scratch." Danny didn't say anything for a long time. He looked out the window at the valley, at the road they'd just come from, at the sense of everything shifting. "Tell me about her," he said finally. 17, Marcus said. "Lives in group foster care with 6 other kids. No real family, no real prospects. Smart as hell, but angry at the world for good reason. Her mother died when she was 12. Overdose, accidental, but basically alone. Never knew her father. Been in the system ever since." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Danny a photo. Sarah Torres had dark eyes and a hard expression, the kind that comes from learning the world doesn't care about you. "Your father wanted her to know that family matters, that loyalty is real, that there are people who will show up." "And you want me to be one of those people," Danny said. "I want you to teach her what I taught you," Marcus confirmed. "To show her that there's skill in this world, purpose, something worth building. Whether that's on an engine or in a life, doesn't matter. The principle's the same." Danny picked up his cold burger and took a bite anyway. It tasted like decision. "When?" he asked. "Soon," Marcus said. "First you ride solo, then we introduce you, then we figure out what her gift is and we help her find it." He smiled slightly. "Your father believed that every person has something they're born to do, something that makes them come alive. We're going to help Sarah find hers." Danny rode the motorcycle solo for the first time on a Saturday morning. No Marcus following, no safety net, just Danny, the machine, and the empty road. He'd done the route 20 times now, but something was different. The weight of the machine felt heavier without Marcus's presence nearby. The road more unpredictable, the sense of responsibility absolute. He rode slowly, feeling every bump, every curve, every shift in the asphalt. The motorcycle's brakes responded when he squeezed. The carburetor breathed smoothly when he twisted the throttle. The tires held the road exactly as they should. Everything he'd fixed was holding. 40 minutes later, rolling back into Riverside, Danny understood something his father must have understood. That doing something alone was the only way to truly know if you'd done it right. Marcus was waiting in the garage when Danny pulled in. The old biker was sitting on the workbench, legs dangling, arms crossed. When Danny cut the engine and climbed off the bike, Marcus just nodded. "How'd it feel?" he asked. "Real," Danny said. "Like it was actually mine." "It is," Marcus confirmed. Jesse wanted that machine ridden by someone who understood it, who'd earned it. You did. He jumped down from the bench. Time to meet Sarah. The foster home was a converted Victorian mansion on Elm Street, the kind of place that had probably been beautiful once but was now just tired. Kids on the porch, actual kids, ranging from maybe 8 to 17, watched as Marcus and Danny climbed the steps. Marcus had changed clothes, ditching the leather jacket for a plain button-up. He looked less threatening that way, though Danny knew the danger was still there, just hidden under civility. A woman in her 50s answered the door, Mrs. Patterson, no relation to the sedan owner, Danny would later learn. She clearly knew Marcus, offered him a tired smile that held recognition and something like resignation. "She's in the back," Mrs. Patterson said, reading, as always. "Fair warning, she's not going to be happy about visitors." Sarah was in the garden, sitting under a sprawling oak tree with a book so thick it looked like a weapon. She didn't look up until Marcus's shadow fell across her page. "Whatever this is, I'm not interested," she said, without lifting her eyes. "Didn't ask if you were," Marcus replied. "This is Danny Chen. His father was a friend of mine. I promised his father I'd introduce you to." Sarah looked up finally, and her eyes were exactly what her photograph had promised, intelligent, angry, and defended. "Why would I care about some random guy's son?" she asked. "You wouldn't," Danny said, surprising himself. "But I care about machines, and Marcus says you're smart, that maybe you're wasting it on anger when you could be using it on something real." Sarah closed her book slowly, sizing Danny up. "You're an asshole," she said, but there was consideration underneath the words. "Probably," Danny agreed. "My dad was too. Comes with being a mechanic." Something flickered in Sarah's expression. Not quite interest, but not rejection either. "What do you want?" she asked, directing the question to Marcus. "I want you to come see Danny's garage," Marcus said. "No pressure, no family conversation bullshit. Just look at something that matters, judge it on its merits. And if I say no, then you say no," Marcus said. "But you won't, because you're curious, and because you're bored, and because deep down you're tired of pretending you don't want something better." Sarah stared at him for a long moment, then looked back at Danny. "Does this involve something illegal?" she asked. "No," Danny said. "Dangerous?" "Just the normal dangerous," Danny said. "Like learning to ride a motorcycle dangerous. But the machine does what you ask, if you understand it right." Sarah stood up, closing her book. "Fine, one look, but I'm not joining any gang or anything." "Gang's different than family," Marcus said, and there was something in his voice that made it clear this was an important distinction. "We're looking for family." The garage changed when Sarah walked through the door. She moved through the space like she was mapping it, running her hands along tools, studying the motorcycle with the same analytical expression Danny had worn a week earlier. She didn't say much, just observed, understood, calculated. "You fix this," she said finally, and it wasn't a question. "Yeah," Danny said, "with help. But you understood it first." Sarah touched the engine carefully, reverently almost. This machine was dying, and you knew what it needed. Marcus watched from across the garage, saying nothing, but Danny could feel the weight of his attention. I learned from my dad, Danny said. He was a mechanic. Taught me that understanding something means respecting it. My father was. Sarah trailed off. Nobody knows. He was deployed. Never came back officially. She turned to face Marcus. That's what this is about, right? That's why you brought me here. Marcus nodded slowly. Your father was Michael Torres, he said, and your mother was right to love him. He was a good man who made a choice to protect people he cared about. The situation got complicated. That's all I can tell you without making it worse. But Danny's father was one of the people who honored your father's memory, and before he died, he asked me to make sure you knew that your father mattered, that his absence meant something, not nothing. Sarah's expression didn't change, but her hands had clenched into fists. So what? She said. You want me to feel better about being abandoned? No, Marcus said. I want you to understand that you come from people who understood loyalty, that abandonment was never the choice, survival was, and that now that you're old enough to understand the difference, you can decide what kind of person you want to be. If you've made it this far, you understand what this story is really about. Hit that like button and let us know you're ready for what comes next. Before Sarah could respond, sirens filled the street outside. Through the garage bay window, Danny saw red and blue lights painting the building. Police cars pulled up in front of the shop, and two uniformed officers emerged, hands resting on their duty belts. Marcus's entire body went rigid. Trouble, he said simply. One of the officers looked in through the window, made eye contact with Marcus, and his expression hardened with recognition. Inside, Marcus commanded, guiding both kids toward the back of the garage. Back office, lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you to. What's happening? Sarah demanded. Something I should have seen coming, Marcus said grimly. Your father's disappearance wasn't accident or oversight. It was covered up by people with resources. And if they know I found you... He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. He pushed them toward the back office, and Danny moved on instinct, pulling Sarah with him. The office door was old wood. The lock wouldn't stop anyone determined, but it was something. Through the thin walls they heard the first officer's voice. Marcus Thorne. We need to talk about Michael Torres. Marcus's response was calm, controlled, the voice of a man who'd been through interrogations before. Haven't heard that name in years, he said. What's this about? A body was found yesterday, the officer said. Matches Torres's description. Dental records confirmed the identity this morning. We're investigating a potential murder-for-hire situation, and your name came up in the original investigation of his disappearance. Danny held his breath. Sarah's hand had found his, gripping tight. Torres was my friend, Marcus said, voice steady. I haven't seen him since 2007. Whatever happened to him, it wasn't me. That might be true, the officer said, but we need you to come downtown and answer some questions. There was a pause, the kind that feels endless when you're listening from behind a locked door. Am I under arrest? Marcus asked. Not yet, the officer said, but if you don't cooperate, I'll cooperate, Marcus interrupted, but not right now. I've got a minor in my care, and I'm going to do the responsible thing and call her guardian first. That bought them maybe 20 minutes, just enough time for Marcus to knock on the office door and tell Danny and Sarah exactly what was going to happen next. Listen, Marcus said, sitting on the edge of the desk in the cramped office. I'm going to be gone for a while. Days, maybe weeks. Police want to talk to me about Torres, and I can't avoid that conversation. Did you kill him? Sarah asked directly. No filter, no fear. No, Marcus said, but someone did. And whoever that someone is, they're connected to whoever took him in 2007, which means they're dangerous. Why would they kill him now? Danny asked. After 18 years? Because he remembered something, Marcus said. Or someone remembered that he existed. Or because there's money involved, and money makes people do stupid things. He looked directly at Sarah. Your father had information. He was a threat, and if I'm right about who did this, then finding you becomes leverage against me. Sarah's hand was still in Danny's, but her expression had hardened further. So, I'm in danger, she said. Potentially, Marcus confirmed. Which is why you're going to stay here. Danny's garage is off the grid. Not many people know about it. Mrs. Patterson at the foster home is going to tell the authorities you ran away. Standard response. Meanwhile, you're going to stay here and keep working on understanding this motorcycle and understanding Danny. That's insane, Sarah said. Yes, Marcus agreed, but it's also the safest option. He stood. I'm going to tell the police I was giving you motorcycle lessons as part of a youth mentorship program. They'll verify it with Mrs. Patterson, who will confirm you've been difficult and prone to running. They won't look too hard because the narrative makes sense. And if it doesn't work, Danny asked, then we figure out plan B, Marcus said. But I need you focused, both of you, on the work, on understanding what you're building together. Because that's what matters in the end. Not the danger, not the investigation, not the people trying to bury the past. Just the work and the loyalty. You understand? Danny nodded. Sarah was silent. Sarah? Marcus pressed. I understand, she said finally. But I want answers. Real ones. About my father. About why this matters. You'll get them, Marcus promised. Once I figure out who killed Michael Torres, once I can prove it, then you'll get the full truth. He moved toward the door, then paused. Your father was a good man. Everything that's happening right now is because of that fact. Remember that. After Marcus left with the police, Danny and Sarah stood in the garage, listening to the sirens fade. He's going to get arrested, Sarah said flatly. Maybe, Danny replied, or maybe he'll figure out who killed your father and solve the problem before they can pin anything on him. You really believe that? Yeah, Danny said, I do. Sarah looked at the motorcycle, at the engine Danny had rebuilt, at the evidence of careful work and accumulated knowledge. Teach me how to fix this, she said. I want to understand everything. 3 months later, on a Wednesday evening in late January, the motorcycle ran perfectly. Sarah had absorbed everything Danny could teach her about mechanical systems, had applied her analytical mind to the problem of how engines breathed, how fuel burned, how explosions became motion. She'd spent 98 days in the garage, learning from Danny, from manuals, from YouTube videos, when Danny didn't have immediate answers. They'd rebuilt the carburetor together, replaced spark plugs, adjusted valve clearances, traced electrical systems until Sarah could navigate the entire wiring diagram without reference. Now, in the dying light of a winter afternoon, Sarah sat on the motorcycle while Danny watched. You sure? Danny asked. No, Sarah said, but I'm doing it anyway. She turned the key. The engine turned over, caught, roared to life. The sound filled the garage, smooth, powerful, absolutely alive. Sarah sat on that machine, feeling the vibration travel through her body, understanding the connection between knowledge and control, between effort and result. There was a knock on the garage door. Danny went to open it, expecting Marcus with coffee, the way he had every evening for the first month before his name disappeared from the news and the investigation into Michael Torres's murder shifted focus away from him. But it wasn't Marcus at the door. It was the old biker, and he looked different, harder, like he'd been through something that changed the geometry of his face. He's gone, Marcus said without preamble. Torres's killer found him 3 weeks ago. He's dead now. Took a while to arrange it, legal-like. Turned out he'd murdered 6 other people besides Torres. The authorities caught up with him eventually. Danny wanted to ask more, but Marcus was already moving past him toward the motorcycle. He watched as Sarah cut the engine and climbed off the bike. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. His pale blue eyes held something that might have been pride or might have been grief. Maybe both. "Your father would be proud," he said finally. "Of you, of what you've learned, of who you're becoming." "Is it over?" Sarah asked. "The investigation is," Marcus said. "The real work, that's just starting." He gestured to Danny. "Both of you understand that now. You understand that fixing something broken is hard, that it takes time and patience and the willingness to learn. That's the lesson your father needed you to have," he said to Sarah. "And that's the promise I kept." Marcus walked toward his motorcycle, then paused. "Danny," he said, "your garage isn't going to be enough much longer. You're going to expand, going to need help. Sarah, once you turn 18 next month, you're going to leave that foster home, and you're going to learn to ride this motorcycle solo, and then you're both going to decide what comes next, whether you're running the shop together, whether you're finding some other path. But whatever you choose, you'll choose it from a place of understanding." He climbed onto his Harley. "The motorcycle stays with you," he said to Danny. "It was Jesse's. Jesse wanted it ridden by someone who earned it. You did. Now I'm asking you to pass it on when the time comes, to someone else who needs to learn that loyalty is real." He started the engine. "That's how legacy works," Marcus said over the noise. "Not through violence or power or money, through showing up, through keeping promises, through teaching the next person what it means to respect a machine and respect a commitment." Marcus rode out of the garage and Danny watched him go, the silhouette against the winter sunset, the sound of that Harley fading into the distance. Sarah stood beside Danny, both of them looking at the motorcycle. "Think we'll see him again?" she asked. "No," Danny said. "Not for a while anyway. He's got other promises to keep." Sarah nodded. She walked to the workbench and picked up a wrench, Danny's favorite, the one his father had given him years ago. "So what do we do now?" she asked. Danny looked around the garage, at the tools, at the machines waiting to be fixed, at the work that needed doing. "We build something," he said. "We show the next person who comes through that door what it means to earn what you have. We teach them that loyalty matters. And we ride." Thank you for riding with us. If this story found you when you needed it, subscribe now and never miss a chapter. These are the stories that matter. Stories about broken people, rebuilding broken things, and discovering they're stronger for it. See you next time.